bottom line, RevOps is critical to the value creation strategy of a private equity firm.
I would say not only critical, I would say the opportunity continues to grow. I mean, look, there is just so much opportunity in the RevOps space right now.
Adam, good to see you again, man. How are you?
I'm great. Here we are, another episode of the RevOps Recruiters podcast. Excited.
That's right. Welcome everyone to the RevOps Recruiters podcast, where our mission is to provide insights and best practices around finding, hiring, and retaining top revenue operations talent.
And you've got David and Adam from RevSearch. We've got a guest with us today.
We do. I'm super excited. We have Matt Callahan, who is an operational excellence leader and RevOps consultant in the PE space. Lots of experience, in-house, external, bigger companies, growth stage companies. So really excited to dive in and get some of that wisdom and value and have a great chat today. So Matt, welcome. Give us a little bit of background on yourself to start us off.
Well, thanks, guys. First of all, just super excited, honored to be here with you today. I'm a huge fan of all the work you guys do. And so I really appreciate the invite.
Yeah, great to have you.
Absolutely.
So I'm a dyed-in-the-wool data nerd. I'll be honest.
Love it.
Early in my career, I spent some time at IBM, and that was really where I cut my teeth on data and really understanding the power of capturing and making sense of really just large data sets. We were dealing with millions of transactions and customers, but we were just swimming in all this data and trying to make sense of it, and really trying to answer basic questions, right? Like, which customers should we go after? How should we deploy the very large global sales team to capture opportunity and so on. So that's really where I really got to appreciate how valuable it is to make sense of data and to drive insights from the data that a company captures and can capture. And from there, I eventually made it into the expert network space. And that's where I got to see sort of close up how private equity teams are really starving for data and insights particularly around sales and marketing. And more importantly, how a company's, what I'll call data excellence, right, directly correlates to their attractiveness to a potential buyer.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's kind of how I started to get into the area of PE. And so that's kind of what brought me to my current role in PE, where I'm working with various portfolio companies to try to help them really build out that data excellence as part of their sales and marketing operation.
Yeah, sure. That's great. I love you go so far back with really driving insights from data, and that's what RevOps is really all about, right? Is being able to use the data that we have to make better decisions, not based on gut feel, but based on what's actually happening and predictably, hopefully, what's happening in the future based on what we see in the data. So I love that longstanding experience that you've got.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's really what it's all about. I mean, so much of what we do is based on that, data framework and foundation, and understanding how to make better use of the information that we have available, and also gather and collect the information that's most valuable, to make better decisions. So.
But that's excellent. So when we're thinking about PE operational excellence and driving value, right, with your team, whatever team you're leading, walk us through a little bit of what your team actually does. Give us some insight.
Yeah, absolutely. So my team works with various portfolio companies, and what we really try to do is ensure that each of them have the basic foundational processes, tools, and capabilities to drive world-class sales and marketing excellence, right? And we have developed what we call our foundation. We think about this like the foundation of a house, because these are, from our experience, the most important building blocks that are required to enable growth. And they sort of go across the entire RevOps spectrum. They start with the tech stack, right? Do we have the right tools in place? And are those tools integrated and connected together appropriately, right? We then focus on the data. Do we have the data necessary to make the decisions we need to make around our sales and marketing organization, our go-to-market, our sales motions? And again, is all of that data integrated across our various systems in the tech stack?
Yeah.
We focus on talent, right? Do we have the right people in the right seats? Do we have enough of them? Do they have the right skills? And are we compensating them appropriately to drive motivation throughout the year? That's important. We believe this management system that the sales and marketing team use is critically important. So we talk so much about KPIs in this business, but we found that without a very strong management system that looks at these KPIs on a weekly, monthly basis, they really don't have any value. So really codifying that management system is important. We talk about the TAM and the SAM and the ICP, right? Do we understand what the opportunity is in the marketplace? Have we brought that down to an individual customer prospect level? And do we know which prospects are most attractive and therefore can focus on going after them? We talk about the demand creation journey, right? Do we have a process in place to really understand how to drive leads, how to progress those leads, convert those leads, and do it quickly, right? And do we have a coverage model? And do we have sales territories that have been optimized across the market to drive growth? So these are some of the key elements in our foundation. And what we do with our portfolio company partners is ensure that they have thought through each of these processes and areas and built the infrastructure that's necessary to make them all stick together. I mean, that's really, in a nutshell, what me and my team, what we do kind of every day.
Yeah, that's great. So how many, when you guys are looking at portfolio or a company and you're thinking about, hey, this is an opportunity that we might pursue from an investment standpoint, what does the operational status of those organizations look like before you come in and begin that assessment, right? How mature are they, or is there a lot of work that you all have to do in that first maybe 90 days, 6 months, year? What does that kind of look like?
Well, I mean, it depends, but generally speaking, there's a lot of work to do. There's always a lot of very basic foundational building block work that needs to be done across some of those areas that I mentioned. We generally work with smaller companies, and so they don't have a lot of maturity around their sales and marketing processes, and certainly when it comes to RevOps, they typically have little to no expertise in that field at all. So we are involved in the recruiting process, for example. We always need to make sure that they have at least one strong RevOps leader in place. And so that's one of the ways that we help them. But even just basic things like setting up their CRM, that's an area that we focus on a lot. Their marketing automation platform, if they have a dialer, we help them implement that as well. So there's always a lot of basic blocking and tackling that has to get done. And it all comes back to the data, right? It all comes back to really having a solid handle on the basic information they use to understand who their customers are, to understand how they've deployed their sales and marketing resources, to understand how they are progressing in terms of driving leads and driving conversion of those leads. So that's fundamentally what we focus on when we start out. And we've actually developed an assessment. It's about 100 questions. It takes typically 1 to 2 hours to complete, but it really goes across all of those foundational blocks. And after that 1 to 2 hour session, we have a much clearer picture on exactly where we need to focus with this PortCo as we sort of begin working with them. And we do that we perform that assessment on a regular basis. We perform it when we first start working with a PortCo, and then we perform it every 6 months. And we're able to actually track, therefore, how we're progressing in terms of helping them become much more mature in their sales and marketing processes.
Yeah, I love it. You've even got a data approach to how you assess, right, the progress that they're making in the RevOps side.
That's right.
I think that's great. Yeah, that's fantastic.
I love the idea of assessment, because it also solves the problem of educating those leaders, right? Which is a major thing that we tend to face as well, interfacing with companies, is what's the mindset about operations, right? What is the overall feel in the C-suite? And having an assessment like that really helps you drive those conversations based on facts.
It does, and it also, I think, helps cut through the noise, because there's always so many things to be thinking about or worrying about, and this is a tool that we have found is incredibly helpful to get to the 1, 2, or 3 key areas that are going to enable this particular PortCo to succeed and grow and meet their plan. So it's been very effective, and we're still rolling it out. We've actually developed an online portal that this is part of, and we're continuing to roll that out as well. But we're pretty excited about it.
So let's switch gears a little bit. Let's talk about, you mentioned at the beginning of the call that you've been around data forever, self-professed data nerd, and I'm sure you've seen a shift in maybe not the amount of data, but how we collect it, what we do with it, the insights. And we've observed, as we've talked with companies, this transition from kind of, well, I'll call it analog for the lack of a better term, like a little bit of gut feel, less data driven, to more this digital or more modern, where I've got access to more data and I'm hopefully making decisions based on not just gut feel, but now what the data is saying. But you made a really interesting comment earlier where you said which KPIs actually matter. So how do you go through the process of really determining what KPIs matter? And what have you seen over the maybe last 5 or 10 years as data's become more of a currency that organizations are used? What's that shift look like from an operational standpoint?
Yeah. So first, in our first 100 days, one of the first areas we look at are KPIs. And so we work closely with each portfolio company to first identify the things that matter most, right? And those quickly then become KPIs, which we build into their ongoing management system. And we've got a fairly robust set of analytics and reports and a website where we're able to track those KPIs, for each portfolio company centrally. So that's a very, setting those up, identifying what they are, very, very important first step in our process. But again, as I mentioned earlier, it's also the management system behind those, which is critically important. And so to really, to be a truly data first enterprise, you need to have both the data KPIs plus the management system. We feel very strongly about that. But I think and by the way, we believe that there's, a handful, maybe a dozen KPIs that are the most important, right? And we also, we also have sort of established what we collectively believe are those sort of 10 to 12 that are most important across all of our portfolio companies, regardless of what industry they're in. I would say in terms of what I've seen as a change or a trend, I think it's taking some of these KPIs and really going to the next level with them. Because of the data and the insight that we have available to us, we can be much more precise in the way that we measure and track and manage against a number of these KPIs, which have been around for a very long time. So I'll give you one example. Pipeline coverage. Pipeline coverage is a ratio, measurement and KPI that's been out there forever, right? And if you ask somebody, what do you think is an appropriate pipeline coverage ratio? They might say, well, 3x, 4x. And I think traditionally that's a very reasonable answer. Law of averages says, you probably need something close to 3x to make your plan. But there's an opportunity to make that KPI a bit more precise if we consider, for example, how much pipeline is created and converted within a given quarter, right? That's a number that is going to take what is otherwise a 3x ratio and bring that down to, say, 2.5. Okay. Similarly, if we know how much pipeline is typically pushed out every quarter, if we looked at the pipeline that was existed at the beginning of the quarter and how much of that by the end of the quarter was pushed, right? That's going to make our pipeline coverage ratio larger, right? Now we don't need 3x, we need 3.5x. So my point is the data and the insight leads us to producing much more effective and accurate and targeted KPIs, which then helps us drive better business performance. And that's when I think about kind of the trends or what I've seen change and evolve over time. I think that's kind of the biggest area.
Yeah. Yeah. So I hear you saying kind of a couple of things in that. So one is obviously we've got better data, we've got access to it, but we're also reassessing it on probably a more regular rhythm than maybe what has happened in the past. In that before, I've been a part of organizations where we really kind of established our KPIs for, say, a 6-month or a year period of time. Like, this is what it's going to look like. But what I hear you saying is every week, every month, every quarter, we can reassess that and be more finite in understanding the trends on a shorter scale, a shorter amount of time.
Exactly. So our cycle time increases, and we're able to be much more responsive to changes in the market and changes in performance of our own teams, and that's key for sure. So yeah,
I have another question for you, Matt. So
yeah,
again, looking at the shift analog to digital, sales ops to RevOps. So sales ops has been around for decades, right? I mean, I guess I don't know when the term was officially coined, but it's been around for a long time. And what we're seeing now is these discussions around sales ops versus RevOps. Is RevOps just sales ops with a new name, right? We have our opinions about this. And obviously companies in an optimal state achieve 360 view of the customer, which is more full funnel, right? All the way from marketing through sales, and then figuring out what are we doing with this customer, right? Retention. What have you seen in the shift from sales ops to RevOps? And what's your opinion around that?
Yeah. So, I mean, I largely agree with everything you just said. I think RevOps, there's much more focused on ops. I'll be honest. Okay. This is about the operation of the business and how do we accelerate our performance and improving our performance to grow this business, and all of the operational processes, systems, tools, capabilities that enable that. And the RevOps professional is getting pulled into more and more and more of that. Been working, as an example, recently with a manufacturing company. And, for them, it's about getting orders out the door. right? Getting those orders shipped, right, on time and accurately, and because that's what drives revenue. It's all about it's all about throughput. It's all about reducing cycle time, and so that is a key area where the RevOps team has to dive in and help out. For example, build a model which tells us, within the factory, which orders are most important to get produced right now. Right. That's just one small example, but again, I think it's operations writ large that the RevOps team is getting pulled into. It's becoming much more important because all of those operational processes are related to the revenue that the company generates. And so it's sales and marketing for sure, but it's broader, and it continues to get even more broad. So that's kind of how I would think about that.
Yeah, no, that's great. Well, as we're wrapping up here, we'd love to hear a success story or two, something that you've seen that over the last couple of years in your role leading your team of working with portfolio companies where you could say, here's a place where we just had a huge amount of impact on the organization as they really dove into revenue operations and the impact it could have in either their growth or their scale. Or so if you've got a couple of success stories, we'd love to hear some just to encourage
Yeah.
folks.
Yeah, I'll try to provide a couple. So one area is in responsiveness of our sales and marketing team to leads, particularly the inbound leads, the hand raisers who come to us. We have found that is an area that does not get enough attention by and large, and so we were working with a SaaS company. And we started looking at their response times to inbound leads, and it was one of these sea of reds. The report, right? Like you open the report, and all it is just red. They weren't tracking it, and they weren't following up quickly, right? And so our team built the hooks into their Salesforce and HubSpot systems so that they were able to track that very first moment of truth outreach that the SDR or the AE was making to these leads, and we basically built that into their weekly management system, so they could see this and track this, what we call speed to lead, right? The speed to lead report, critically important. All right, so now they went from, I think they were responding almost a third of their leads they weren't responding to at all, and I think it was only about 5% of their inbound leads that they were responding to in less than an hour. We always recommend trying to respond within an hour, and they improved that to over 80% of inbound leads are responded to within an hour, and their conversion from MQL to SQL is now I think it's about 1,000 basis points higher, so 10% higher. So significant improvement. And again, it was all around putting the data together, putting the insight together, and building that into the ongoing management system of the company, so they have clear visibility to their performance, and they can work with their team to improve.
Yeah, I love that. That's great.
Another example is an area that continues. We're now in the budget cycle for 2024, and one of the great topics that always comes up in the budget cycle is the comp plan. What are we doing with the comp plan next year, right? And so we were recently working with a company that had one of these comp plans that was highly disjointed. Each AE was on a slightly different set of rates against different sets of products and so on. Fairly complex to manage and maintain, and also didn't really provide the business with the insight they need to understand, how does the comp payout vary with performance of the company, right? Why is it, for example, that, the variable comp expense, went up this year by 10%, even though revenue is flat, right? So, we put together what I would describe as a fairly simplified comp model that relies on a payout curve with some basic metrics. And so now they have clear visibility to how the comp will flex with performance in 2024. And it also gives the reps a unique opportunity to make bank and be motivated throughout the year to achieve their full year goal. So that's another example. We rolled out a similar plan last year at another business, and the attainment for the reps improved from, I think the average attainment was about 78%, and that moved up to 92%.
Wow.
And the revenue increased, growth increased by about 500 basis points. So just a couple examples of the kind of work we do and the kind of impacts that we try to have. But those are fairly typical of the kind of work that my team does.
Excellent. So it sounds like, bottom line, RevOps is critical to the value creation strategy of a private equity firm, you would say.
I would say not only critical, I would say the opportunity continues to grow. I mean, look, there is just so much opportunity in the RevOps space right now. I cannot think of a better place to be career-wise, particularly for somebody who's relatively young or relatively early in their career. It's just an incredible space that only continues to grow in terms of opportunity and what can be done. And so I'm incredibly excited to be where I am, and incredibly excited to work with you guys as we continue this journey.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we couldn't agree more. We think it's a great space to be in. And Matt, we really appreciate you joining us today, sharing a little bit on the inside of what it looks like to be on the inside of the PE firm, working with the portfolio companies. So just appreciate your time and your insight today.
Of course. Hey, again, thanks so much for having me, guys. I really appreciate it.
Yep, absolutely. Thanks, Matt.
Take care.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the RevOps Recruiters podcast. If you found the information in this episode helpful, please consider subscribing. You can do that on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts. Also, if you have comments or suggestions for future podcasts, we'd love to hear them. Please put those in the comments section on YouTube. Finally, if you're looking to hire your first or next RevOps leader, we'd love to help. You can connect with us through our website at www.revsearch.io. Thanks again for listening.